Tomorrow's not promised. Go on, do your little dance while they still playing your song. Tonight, man, it's gonna be. I'm waiting on my guys to call from the joint. I don't know if they locked down or what, but I'm gonna try to knock some of these questions out. And I do want to apologize because in the comment section, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna answer all the questions, hopefully with videos. One of the questions I have received is, how does the prison system fail to rehabilitate inmates before releasing them back into society? That's a really good question. I think that if we're going to talk about rehabilitation, first you got to look at you have to actually look at the terminology rehabilitate. So rehabilitate means, can I put that up on the screen? That's going to be too much. Um, to habilitate means to be able to handle, in short description. And when a person gets to jail, that means that they are not rehabilitated. They are habilitated, meaning that the state of mind that they are in is what got them to prison. And so the system is going to rehabilitate them, which means that you're going to get them in the mindset of that in which got them into prison in the first place. So the terminology, the jargon does not make sense from the get-go, but let's just give it a hoot and, say the prison system failed to rehabilitate inmates before releasing them back into society. I would say that there's not enough education. There's not enough education. It's too many drugs going into the prison system. It's too much unlawfulness. It's not enough security. And I don't think the state really cares about rehabilitating individuals that go to prison. I think that it's a money grab. I think that the system is working the way that they think it should work. And to alter that, to reduce recidivism, to improve rehabilitation would be to reduce your dollar signs. Plain and simple. Ain't no two ways around it. So yeah, that's that question. What are the biggest changes you've noticed in prison conditions since your time inside? The unlawfulness, the structure. There's not a whole lot of structure. Unfortunately, people are dying daily. They're dying daily. A lot of ODs, a lot of overdoses, a lot of drones going in, a lot of dope things coming out. You cannot rehabilitate. It's think about rehab. When you go to rehab, you're on a plot of land or you're in a place where you can't readily get to drugs. A lot of these people are going to prison because they have drug issues. But if they go into jail and all the drugs that they was doing on the street, all these drugs are there in jail, shit, ain't no rehabilitation taking place. None at all. What role does anger and unresolved trauma play in the highest recidivism rates? What role does anger and unresolved trauma play in the high recidivism rate? Recidivism is the rate at which individuals return back to prison. The question is, what role does anger and unresolved trauma? Unresolved trauma could cause you to act out in a way in which you have acted out before. Unless it's treated, unless you've learned how to utilize your emotional intelligence, that means being aware of yourself, being aware of what pissed you off. It could just because you take a person and you incarcerate them for a decade, they don't magically get fixed. If they have issues that needed to be addressed and those issues are not being addressed, you will have to address those issues. And there's no two ways about it. If you don't, then you're just neglecting what's going on or true resolution. What's the hardest part of staying out of prison after release? The hardest part about staying out of prison, it's really not hard to stay out of prison. I'm really scared. Like, I'm scared to go to prison. So it don't get it's not hard for me. I can understand for the average person, it could be hard because if you don't pick up any additional trades, you don't learn anything new, and it's time to survive, you're gonna resort back to the things that you used to do to survive. And I can't knock that, but at the end of the day, if what you was doing, what are you doing that's gonna help you to survive, you're gonna resort back. Whatever you're doing that's gonna that it whatever you if you're doing something that you've done to get into prison and you continue to do that, then it's not going to change. Let me make sure I understand that question correctly. Yeah, the hardest part about staying out of prison after release. It ain't hard, folks. It ain't hard. Temptation and understanding what your assignment is. For me, understanding what my assignment was and understanding what God had for me to do. A lot of times we don't have structure. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what we're doing. So we end up spending quality times in places we don't even need to be. I think CeeLo said that. Whoosh, okay? Don't play with him. What mindset shifts must ex-offenders make to avoid going back? That's a really good question. I think that there has to be a complete, total paradigm shift. Paradigm shift defined is, the paradigm shift is fundamental change in approach of underlying assumptions, geophysical evidence supporting, changing the way that you think, changing the way that you program. Instead of stuffing your tennis shoes, your shoelaces inside time so that they don't keep coming loose. You got to change the way that you thought. Because if you don't change the way that you thought, you don't improve the way that you think. Thus, reforming back to what you knew, which is how to get in prison. I'm going to close my window because I don't want my neighbors looking at me. I got my window wide open. It's all good, though. All right, so now what we got? Do you think the justice system really wants rehabilitation, or is it designed to keep people locked in a cycle? Without a doubt, the system is taught. It is created. It was originated to collect, to house, to profit off of. And I'll wait for you to prove me wrong. But yeah, that's what the system is there to do. It hadn't changed. I don't know if it will change. I think that some people will miss the big blunder or miss the big hit and come out on the light side, but some people are going to continuously get punched in the mouth by the judicial system. That's what it does. That's what it's going to continue to do. It's the world we live in. All right, so what are the most overlooked tools that could actually help reduce recidivism? Education. I don't know if they're overlooked, but they're not dwelt upon. Emotional intelligence. And shifting up the paradigm, renewing your mind, figuring out what you want to do, figuring out how to do it. That's the gist of it. Okay, so boom. Anyways, what are the most How do you help people recognize the warning signs that they're heading toward destructive decisions? Hopefully, because you can't point out the decision and the aftermath of the current situation that they're in. But what you can do is to help them look at some of their previous mindsets and previous shenanigans and walk them through so that then they can see that, okay, this is what this situation turned into and this is where I was at. So then they'll begin to understand, hopefully they'll begin to understand the pattern. Once they see that pattern, then things begin to go in a different motion. That's all you can do. When you get them to recognize where they're at mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and then they can see that pattern, then they'll go throughout their lives and start well throughout their day to day, and they'll start to see certain things. Hey, this is one of those things, and so once you recognize it, you're self-aware. And then when you disregard certain things or you try not to interact, then it helps you actually stay safer and make better decisions. But it's all of this shifting of the paradigm. What's one piece of advice you wish every young man knew before making choices that would land them in prison? Hey, that's a really good question. Um, what's one piece of advice you wish every young man knew before making choices that could land them in prison? One piece of advice. Understand, I wish they would understand the connection between slavery, the education system, and prison. If more of us understood that dynamic, I think we would be in a better place. We would understand that some of us make it out, but it's designed for a lot of us to go sit down. Do you think hip hop, specifically drill music, fuels violence, or is it just reflecting reality? It is reflecting reality to one degree or another, but it also fuels violence. Anytime that a population of people or a group of people are uh, conditioning, molding their minds, and they're molding their minds with, mechanic talk. When I say mechanic talk, if you get a young teen and all they do is talk about, how to rebuild engines and motors, and they listen to music, that's what it does, and they're around people and that's what they do, then before long, that person gonna learn how to fix a motor. But if you're around something as vicious as drill music, where the entire genre of music is centered around, people killing people. If you listen to this 5 days a week, 7 days a week, it's the first thing, and you have an opportunity to prove that you ain't to be played with, then they will effectively and seductively resort to violence. It's just like with cheerleaders. When you talk to cheerleaders, you can their condition is do this cheer till you get this cheer right. And then on the game day, they execute. So with drill music, if you keep listening to it, you'll get what you got. No simpler way to explain that. Next question. Can listening to violent lyrics actually trigger violent emotions and decisions? Listen to me. Anything that you listen to is a potential test. When I say it's a potential test, and I just talked to the kids at Miller Grove High School about this week in and week out. Hey, you have a geometry test or calculus test on Friday. On Monday through Friday, you study for this test. You study for it. You look at the worksheet. So if you are listening to lyrics that depict violence, or you're playing video games that depict violence, or you're looking at movies that depict violence, and you're around people and all they do is talk about violent stuff, this is you're uploading data. You are conditioning yourself. So when it's time to take the test, again, yes, the lyrics do contribute to the violence. Next question is, how have you worked with young men whose emotions were heavily influenced by rap music? Yes, that's just a simple yes. Everybody, even if you're not aware of it, you're conditioned by it. Sad to say, but it's true. What would you say to young rappers who push street life narratives but haven't lived that reality? Please stop killing black people in your music. Do you think labels and streaming platforms profit off the destruction of young black men through music? Yep, I do. I definitely think that. I do think labels and streaming platforms profit off the destruction of young black men through music. I do think that. How do we shift the culture so that intelligence, discipline, and self-control are just as respected as street credibility? Where are these questions come? How do you shift the culture? That's a really good question, bro. I'm trying to shift the culture right now. Um, How do you shift the culture so that intelligence, discipline, and self-control are just as respected as strict credibility? I think overall you won't be able to, but I think that in your circle, with the individuals that you deal with, that I deal with, I just try to spread my truth to whomever will listen. Some people gonna pick it up. Some people gonna have to bump their heads. Unfortunately, that's the way that it goes. You're not gonna change a whole culture of people just because you think uh drill music or trap music is leading to violence and killing off a race of people. Just because you say it out loud don't mean that people will listen to it. Last two questions and then we're gonna get up out of here. How do you teach young men to handle anger before it turns into violence? It's very simple. Just dwelling on the elements of emotional intelligence. If you can be self-aware, you can set your boundaries, you know what your goals are, you can be motivated to accomplish those goals. You must have empathy. You must have social skills so you can communicate how you're feeling because how you feel is important. It goes a little deeper, but as long as we are touching on the five elements of emotional intelligence and we're thinking with our brains, like a lot of people, like they make this sign, and on Valentine's Day, we in love, or we like this is your heart. This is where your heart at. But I promise you, it don't do nothing but pump blood. Like all your thoughts, all of your emotions, they come from your brain. So all it once you start to understand and realize that you are one thought away from going home and you are one thought away from going to chain gang, you'll begin to condition yourself in a different way. I think a lot of times we have this line where we're gonna show motherfucker we ain't going for it and you can't do this and you can't do that, when in fact you don't know the rules to this game over here. You just going off what somebody else said, and they should have kept their mouth shut. So now you have structured your life around misinformation, and it's just potential loss. I'm gonna make sure I read that quick. How do you teach young men to handle anger before it turns into violence? To recognize where they are emotionally so that they can resolve their issues, so that they can be water and not be fighting. What are some practical steps men can take to break the cycle of reacting emotionally instead of responding intelligently? What? What are some practical steps men can take to break the cycle of reacting emotionally instead of responding intelligently? Okay. Same thing. It's the same thing, bro. A lot of the course, everything with me is gonna be clear cut. It's gonna always come back to emotional intelligence. It's gonna always come back to being water. It's gonna always coming back to just thinking, bro. Always be learning, but also utilize the things that you have learned. And don't be afraid to learn from the mistakes of others. Cause if you step in this boo-boo, bro, I don't have to step in it to understand that my shoes are gonna stink afterwards. Like it's not a situation like that. Um, so to answer the question, practical step is recognizing who you are, what you're trying to get done. And if you're so focused on your goal, bro, a lot of stuff you will recognize that it's just something that's going to throw you off and get you out of position and rather you up. And then you're going to end up again spending quality time in places that you don't even really need to be. I'm going to take 5 more and then we're going to be out. Okay, so how does unresolved childhood trauma contribute to anger issues and criminal behavior later in life? Oh, I wish I could break this all the way down, but um, hey man, trauma can come from all types of places. Sometimes it's passed on to us unknowingly. But if you got parents that have trauma, a lot of times shit, a whipping could be trauma, or seeing police brutality can be trauma. Let me make sure I answer the question because I'll take off. How does unresolved childhood trauma? Whenever you have childhood trauma, bro, it doesn't just go away. It shows up in your day-to-day. Your trauma, who you interact with, can be caused by your trauma or your unresolved trauma, and could thus allow you to exist or coexist in a very toxic situation. And your toxicity could become a way of life. And then you pass that trauma on down to the next generation. And the prison population never decreases. So, yeah. What role does social media play in the fueling conflicts that lead to violence and incarceration? That is a really good question, man. Same answer, man. You look at certain things that become a way of life, and a lot of times people be lying. That's a good question, man. That's a deeper question. And cause then I would have to be able to come up with some facts and some analysis in reference to social media. I think that we all influenced by social media in some form or another. And I guess violence begets violence. Do you think men, especially black men, are given enough safe spaces to express emotions without being judged? I don't think black men or black women are given safe spaces. I try to create safe spaces. Both like in a group tomorrow, where am I at? Tomorrow's Tuesday. I'll be on James P. Brawlin with Credible Messengers. I'm gonna try my best to create a safe space for young black men and young black women to communicate. And on Wednesday, I'll be at Peak Academy in East Point. We'll be in a circle. I'll do my best. When I interact with an individual on a more intimate level, where it's just me and a client, I try to create that space. If I'm in a classroom full of 30 people and somebody is talking, I try to encourage the other people to listen to him. Don't laugh, because then you'll shut him down, and then he or she won't ever share anything else again. So the answer to that question, how can yeah, the answer to that question is yes. I'm gonna read it again. Do you think men, especially black men, are given enough safe spaces to express emotion? No. And then you can't be too emotional, because then you'll start to perceive, and others may perceive you as being dysfunctional, soft, or somebody who need to stay on the porch. On another note, a lot of us are raised by our mother, so we kind of overly emotional anyways, and that's a whole nother shit show. How can fathers and mentors help young men develop emotional intelligence before they turn to the streets? By practicing what they preach, by understanding it, and in the same way we show a kid how to shoot a jumper, or in certain instances, cut dope, shoot a pistol, walk a dog, throw a football, say your prayers, read your Bible, brush your teeth, you should be implementing emotional intelligence, because it is something that can keep you alive, send you to jail, give you peace, or create trauma. What's the most powerful success story you've witnessed from someone who turned their life around through anger management? I don't know the most powerful one, because I don't keep up with my clients. I interact with clients. I've been doing this for about 13, 14 years. I don't even focus in on the success stories. I'm damned. I hate to use the term damn, but I'm too in tune with the bad stories. Like this past month, I stopped going to funerals. I stopped going to funerals because I'm tired of balloon releases. I'm tired of speaking at funerals. It was just too much death, just like back to back to back. Man, I couldn't get my spirit right on it. So I can tell you, on the way to a funeral, hey man, I got 10 kids that's doing good, but the fact remains that, bro, I'm going to a funeral. That means somebody lost. Um, that shit hurt, because you want to think that you add to people's lives, but the truth is um in the proof is in where they end up. in the long run. And I got some kids that had to turn themselves in. I had some kids that done dropped out. I got some kids that just didn't get it. They had to learn the hard way. And that's the only way I can rate myself, bro. I don't even keep up with all the good, because it's not just you. It's not just, oh, because you sit and you had anger management. No, that's not how that works. Realistically, that's not how that works. Like, it takes a community, bro. It may take some emotional intelligence over here. It may take an old black lady with some gray hair and some good chicken to praying for your little stupid butt over there. It could be your dad or somebody else teaching you to say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. It ain't just it's the other things that go along with it, because I can give you emotional intelligence, but then if I throw you in the house and everybody's selling dope and shooting and frolicking around, then Jesus got to be with you, my dog. So yeah, I don't look at all the success stories, bro. It's too much death around to be talking about look what I did and look how successful this program is, or look at this curriculum. It makes you feel good when you see that light come on. It makes you feel good. I had a chess program last semester. No, in 2024. And I seen the light come on the kids. That feel good. But that don't mean that child or somebody else in that class can't go out and do something that's not thought provocative. Or yeah. And then you don't always get to keep up with the kids either, because I come across so many of them. You don't always get to keep up with them. A lot of these evidence-based programs, they sometimes allow you to collect data, 3 years after it's taking place, after the program has ended. But most of them don't have funding for that. So that is going to be it. I'm about to log off. I'll be back on later on, man. I'm gonna I'm supposed to get a phone call from the joint. We'll see how that goes. But I appreciate y'all for logging in for the time that you did, man. Be the peace.